Hi, I'm Neil from Wild Elements, and I'm working in collaboration with the National Botanic Gardens of Wales to introduce you to permaculture. Permaculture is a design system that was initially developed to create sustainable agricultural systems. However, this design tool is now utilised worldwide to design homes, financial systems, businesses, social groups and education. The National Botanical Gardens have been supporting a project called Growing the Future, a 5-year project to champion Welsh horticulture, plants for pollinators, the protection of wildlife and the virtues of growing plants for food, fun, health and well-being. Here at Wild Elements, we thought it would be an excellent opportunity to combine our knowledge of permaculture and link it with growing plants for the future. In our last video, we talked about the 3 ethics that permaculture is based upon. These are earth care, people care and fair share. We looked at how by creating even a small space for growing plants can help us to learn how to think in a more sustainable way and how to include children in this learning journey. Today, we're going to look at the principles that surround permaculture ethics. These principles are thinking tools that help us to look at natural systems and integrate them into our designs. This ensures that our designs are efficient, giving maximum output for minimum input. There are 12 principles that are proposed by David Holmgren, an Australian who was the co-founder of the permaculture movement. In this short video, there isn't enough time to go into each one of them in detail. However, we will look at some of them in depth in this series of short films. David encapsulated the ethics in simple idioms that many of us are familiar with to help us all understand what the principles mean. The principles are: observe and interact. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Careful observation of the world around us can help you to design your growing space. Discovering a sunny spot that's sheltered from the wind will make growing plants easier. Placing your growing area away from the areas that children like to play can help reduce accidental damage. Catch and store energy. Make hay whilst the sun shines. When your plants are ready to harvest, a simple way of capturing their energy is to store them for times ahead. Popping some peas into the freezer for a meal in the winter can bring a spot of sunshine into a dreary winter day. Obtain a yield. You can't work on an empty stomach. Although this principle alludes to growing something you can eat, yields are only limited by your imagination. A growing area can be devoted to cut flowers, to bring nature into your home. It can increase the number of wild visitors to your garden, or it can be a source of inspiration for art. Apply self-regulation and accept feedback. The sins of the fathers are visited on the children of the 7th generation. When we design in permaculture, we design for the long term, the very long term. It's a challenge to design a growing patch that your great-great-great-grandchildren may still be able to harvest. This thinking can change the plants that you may select. You may think about the warming environment or future technology in your design. Use and value renewable resources. Let nature take its course. Nature relies upon cycles to survive and thrive. Seeking our renewable resources and prioritising them over cost is something we have to think deeply about. Is it worth investing in renewables now rather than spending our money on things that unbalance nature? Produce no waste. Waste not, want not. Nature wastes nothing. If you walk through a natural space, you will not see litter caused by nature. Only humans litter the earth. The leaves from the trees are the compost of the future. Seeds become a source of food. Manure becomes a source of nutrients for plants. How can you adopt the circle of life into your growing area? What will you do with the plants at the end of their life? Can you place a feeding table within the growing areas to capture the manure from the birds? What will happen to excess water from your growing area? Can you create a small water garden to support invertebrates and amphibians? Design from patterns to details. Can't see the woods for the trees. Patterns are everywhere in nature. The more common ones to spot are spirals, nets, branches, waves and lobes. You can incorporate these patterns into your design to emulate nature. Integrate rather than segregate. Many hands make light work. This principle encourages us to think about connections between people, plants and other creatures. If you think about the relationships between organisms, you can create a growing area rich in diversity and strong so that it can withstand attack. An example of this would be companion planting. Mixing onions with strawberry plants will help to reduce the attacks on the fruit. Carrots could be planted in a higher bed to deter carrot fly. Children can be encouraged to help each other. Each element in the design will support other elements. Use small and slow solutions. Slow and steady wins the race. During the pandemic, lots of us have had to slow down. As human beings, we have a tendency to go at a task with 100% conviction, working tirelessly until the task is completed. We tend not to observe. We don't make slow and steady adjustments and miss the learning that we could take away from the growing plants. An example of this is planting seeds. We decide we're going to grow veg. We dig, feed, buy 1 million packets of seeds, plant them all, tend to them lovingly, harvest them, and then no one in the house likes peas. This can be changed by having a conversation in the beginning and buying only the seeds of the veg that the whole family enjoy. Use and value diversity. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Diversity is essential for life to survive. It gives us resilience, increases the chance of survival if attacked. The greater the diversity within your growing area, the healthier everything will be. Swap seeds, mix edibles with non-edibles, encourage insects and birds, compost your food waste and introduce it back into the soil to encourage fungi. All of these steps will encourage diversity in your growing area. Use edges and value the marginal. Don't think you are on the right track just because it's a well-beaten path. From my walks in nature, I have observed that on the edges is where it's at. The diversity of nature on the edge of a forest is greater than in the centre of it. When we walk along rocky shores, the rock pools teem with a greater diversity of life when compared with the dunes and the sea. Does your growing area have to be square? Do you ever see neat edges form naturally at the edge of a sea or forest? By creating growing areas with undulating edges, you increase the edge and therefore increase the opportunity for a diverse range of organisms to live. Create, use and respond to change. Vision is not seeing things how they are, but how they will be. This could possibly be one of the most important principles at the present time. The way that we can spend our time has changed dramatically in 2020. We could perceive that our freedom has been limited, or we could perceive that we have been liberated. It's important that our children are given the tools to respond to change in a positive way. By creating a small growing space, we can show them that succession through the year is a good thing, or knowledge can be transferred from one person to another. When we begin a new growing area, it is important to know about the soil that we're going to be growing in. A fun and simple way that can be done by people of almost any age is to get to know your soil by digging a small hole 15 centimetres down. Fill a glass jar 1/3 full with soil from the bottom of the hole and fill the jar with water. Shake vigorously. After 30 seconds, you'll see sand settle to the bottom. After a minute, you will see loam starting to settle. The final layer to settle is the fine particles of clay. This can take over a day to settle depending upon the size of the clay particles. A perfect soil will have roughly 1/3 sand, 1/3 loam and 1/3 clay. You can use this information to plan what you need to add to your soils to make it a healthy place to grow plants. We look forward to seeing you in the next film.